I like to nerd out on absolutely everything.
Can you block Corey Leonard on YouTube, please?
Corey Leonard, actually, and this is, we're going to go the reverse order, Corey. We are going to donate $5 to you.
I was an ex-phys major in college, and I had a super senior year post basketball. So like, I remember not caring so hard about my finals that I would actually bring in the Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, the level 1 manual. I would say, hey, why is this stuff important? Movements about the spine. There's the spine. Here's the pelvis. Here's the femur. I'm looking at natural movements. What else do I really need to know? Like, what's so important about the agonist antagonist? It is important, like when you really dive into those rabbit holes. But for most trainers, this is all you need. You guys could disagree, but it's all right here. If you can understand, if you can draw, if you can see frontal planes, if you can understand why a bar over your head, the torso going forward would be incorrect, all those sorts of things, like, I love it.
I have found it to be useful to understand where my swim lane ends and somebody else's begins. Understanding the mechanics of movement. How should these body parts work together? How should they be moving? Is that a position thing? Or is that literally an anatomy problem that we have standing in front of us right now?
Do you have an on-ramp, Andrew?
No. There's a lot of different models, right?
Yeah, I think that's
I choose the model that works for me. It doesn't mean I don't recommend that to affiliates. I ask them, like, whatever works for you is going to work. This is what I do, but it does not mean that it's going to make you the most money. It does not mean it's going to make your clients the best movers. Like, figure out what you're good at and do it.
My current setup is we schedule a consult with them, series of questions, and then from there we book their personal training sessions, their nutrition consult, all that kind of stuff, and then move from there.
There's often confusion between muted hip and lack of hip extension. How do you describe the difference?
For me, it's much more dangerous in catching a clean than light push presses. Like, I feel like it's more of an efficiency, and I don't know if you guys agree, more of an efficiency in cycling jerks and push presses, more of a danger if we start getting into that heavier clean.
I don't know that it's efficient. I could see that I would argue that it's less problematic, but I'd be hard pressed to jump on the, it's not you meaning it's an efficiency problem. Not
like it could be more efficient if we get rid of that.
Correct. This is kind of like the dummy's way of drawing the human, the skeletal structure so that it makes sense. And then the other ones are based on flexion and extension, where everybody should be, at least in my opinion, should be super honed in, and there's a couple of places: flexion and extension, core to extremity, and then probably internal versus external rotation. If you're not looking at the human body to say, where should their hands be? Where should their feet be? The question is relative to what? That's how you start to make those decisions, which makes them, pretty easy.
I actually have an extra one of these. I don't think any of that stuff's bad. I just think in general, when somebody comes to me with all this new cool stuff, I'm like, do you have a 10-minute plank? Chances are your core is weak and that is just radiating out. Get a 10-minute plank and then let's come back.
Where you can add the biggest bang for your buck as a trainer is having at least a cursory knowledge of these things so that you can just be like, hey, cool, that is actually a useful tool. Here's what that is for. And here's about how much that you probably need. Movement quality. Without focus on intensity. You can still execute that idea in the context of a class. You can just tell that athlete, be like, hey, this training session is for quality. It's still going to be hard, but I'm not worried about you moving fast. We know that threshold training will lead to errors and faults. So let's just avoid that. Let's move as well as humanly possible.
I want people to focus on quality, but I want them to know their gauges and intensity. I want them to understand, hey, this day I really need to lay it down. I was stressed to the gills. And that's when I'm going to get injured. That's when I'm going to walk into the gym and do something stupid. If you can wave like a this is cool new shiny object in front of you, you'll just
Liver King. I like Liver King. What are some concerns we should be aware of as coaches with athletes who are lordotic or kyphotic?
The terms lordosis and kyphosis are not inherently bad. Everybody has them. Lordosis being the natural curvature of your lumbar spine, kyphosis being the natural curvature of your T-spine.
There comes a line where don't pretend like you can say that word to sound really smart. If they truly have issues, they need to be outsourced. If their movements are so gross and they say they have no pain, I guess we're going to make sure their loads are appropriate.
Some people just aren't kinesthetically aware. What are your best tips and tricks for helping people develop that awareness?
Somebody who, broadly falls in the motor moron category,
Yep.
where just like,
Yep.
oh, you don't know how to move your limbs.
Isometrics, pauses, tempos, light loads, elevate your heels on a plate. You're going to come up 1 inch. You're going to go back down 1 inch. You're going to come up 5 inches. You're going to go back down. You're going to marry that position, and you're going to not come off tension and sweat.
What does it mean by functional movement generally weds the spine to the pelvis? And what do you say to people that will argue they need more twisting motion in their training?
Functional movements typically start in your greatest position of power, the spine and the natural S curve of the spine wedded to the pelvis. That's your strongest position to do anything from: run, jump, clean, backflip, whatever you're going to do. People say CrossFit doesn't have enough twisting. In reality, you want to learn to set up in that position. Otherwise, that's where you end up hurting yourself. You end up hurting yourself in daily life when you accidentally twist with the laundry basket. That's when those things happen. If you just would have worked a deadlift in a good position with the natural S curve of the spine wedded to the pelvis, you would probably know that, oh, my brain probably doesn't think this is a good idea to twist this laundry basket. Do CrossFit, get really strong in the frontal plane, and play your sport. That's going to be your best bet. I want to see more athletes do CrossFit and then go do their sport and be like, well, what do you do for training? I just do CrossFit, and then I play my sport.
We're getting into the nuances here. Context, right? It's not an all or nothing. How much? What's the load? What's the frequency? What's the volume? Like, is it making this person better? Or do I just like to call myself the rotational guy because it's some sort of niche thing inside the fitness space?
At the end of the day, your members just have to move well, and they don't have to know why they're moving well, how to move well. They just have to move well. Some members will want to learn more. Many members won't care.